Welcome to A Dose of Reality show, where real conversations lead to real hope, real growth, and real impact. I'm your host, Jamila Perez, podcast host, author, and storyteller, and mom and wife and everything in between. Each week, I sit down with incredible people who aren't afraid to share the truth behind their journey. Whether we're talking about faith, motherhood, entrepreneurship, overcoming life's hardest seasons, or finding purpose through pain, my prayer is that every episode reminds you that you're not alone and that your story still matters. So grab your cup of coffee, open your heart, and let's get your dose of reality. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of A Dose of Reality show. Today's episode is one that I believe so many women need to hear. My guest today has a story of rejection, survival, heartbreak, healing, and ultimately redemption. From a very young age, she knew what it felt like to question whether she was truly wanted. She experienced rejection from the person who was supposed to love and protect her the most, her own mother. And as she grew older, some of those wounds followed her into adulthood. She eventually found herself in a marriage that became abusive, a marriage she stayed in for more than 20 years. But her story didn't end there. She found the courage to walk away and she began rebuilding her life. She began discovering what it meant to heal, to know her worth, and eventually to experience a completely different kind of love. And today she's sharing her story. We're going to talk about the little girl who desperately needed love. The woman who survived years of abuse, the courage it took to finally leave, and the life and love she discovered on the other side. So, and I especially want to say this to the woman watching or listening who may recognize pieces of herself in this story. Your past does not have to determine how your story ends. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and join us for a very real, very vulnerable conversation. This is A Dose of Reality show. Let's get into today's episode. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to A Dose of Reality show. My name is Jamila, and today I have the pleasure to have on our show Dana Diaz. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you so much.
She is amazing. I met her through Boricua Talks conference. I heard her story and I was like, she needs to come here. So that's why I was like, let's bring her on. Let's bring her on. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. So, I have a firm belief that I do not start with I'm a mom and a wife and all the things because those are the roles that I play in life. And I love those roles, but who am I? I am a half Puerto Rican, part Italian, part German woman whose grandparents all came here to America from other countries. I love to dance. I love to eat. I love to travel. Gosh, I love writing. I've written 3 books and I love
Ooh.
talking. I've been told I talk too much, but it apparently serves me well.
That's awesome.
In what I do. So, that's a little bit about who I am. I have 2 cats. I love animals. I love children. And, I love life most of the time, but life has not been kind to me, which is what brings me on shows like this and on stages like Boricua Talks, because I think there's a desperate need for people to have permission or at least to see somebody else giving themselves permission to speak
Yeah.
their truth. And all in all, at the core of my being, that's who I am. I am a truth teller. I see the truth, I speak the truth, and I will not brush the truth under the rug.
Wow. She just started it off like with a bomb right there. But that's amazing. Wow.
Thank you.
So let's see. Before we get into your story, I wanted also, like, when people meet you today, what would they never guess you've had to survive?
Well, it's interesting you say that, but it's the lifelong abuse.
Mm.
Lifelong from the time, I mean, you heard part of my story. My mother did not want me. I was born to a teenage mother that was going to leave me at the hospital. And it was not good from the get go. And then after the abusive childhood, I walked right into an abusive relationship with my first husband, and I was with him 25 years. But I have had people, as a matter of fact, just this last May, I was invited to speak at a fundraising gala for a nonprofit. you know, uh, they were raising money for funds for victims of domestic violence, to help women escape
Mm-hmm.
those situations. So here I
Mm-hmm.
am in a situation where we are advocating against domestic violence, and a woman comes up to me and says, "Oh, you're the speaker. You don't look like somebody who's been through something like that." And I'm like, it made me, it wasn't the first time I've heard that. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to look like? I mean, I'm here to speak. So, I mean, I always wear a red dress. I wear a cute dress. My hair was done. I had my lipstick and my nails and all the things
Uh-huh.
because I'm a girl. I like feeling pretty and doing the girly things. But
Yeah.
am I supposed to? I mean, and I'm going to say it right now for anyone listening. I talk very bluntly and directly, so I apologize if I offend or trigger anybody. It's not intentional. But I'm thinking, as this woman is saying this, like, am I supposed to be walking around with a black eye and fingerprints around my neck or knife wounds or what? What does a victim of domestic violence look like? Like, obviously, I'm not in that situation anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't look like that. Like, that just seemed like a weird thing. Fortunately, I don't get embarrassed or offended anymore. So I was just like, well, that's a very limited thing to say to somebody. Um, but I think that that's representative of society because if you don't have a gunshot wound, a knife wound, or some visible evidence that you've been beaten, most people would say you have not been abused. But as somebody
Yes.
who has had the physical abuse on top of sexual and legal and not even talking about the emotional and psychological, um,
Mm-hmm.
the wounds that stay with you are the emotional and mental ones, the ones that make you doubt yourself and give you low self-esteem and turn you into a people pleaser and an appeaser that you override yourself every day the rest of your life because you feel like you're worthless and that what you want doesn't matter and who you are doesn't matter. And I was even told by my stepfather in childhood that I shouldn't even exist. So
Mm.
to say that I don't look like what I've been through, I don't know how to take that. You're not in my heart, you're not in my mind. You don't see those bruises. Those are the invisible ones, but those are the ones that remain when all the ones that were on my skin have healed.
Yes. Yeah, people are sometimes people just don't know how to tell others, like, or ask sometimes. This is just like, why would you say that? That's like, come on. Yeah, though that is that, oh my gosh. Yeah, those are yeah, just like you said, it's just people don't know what you've gone through. And the thing is, I think people don't also look at the verbal abuse as a
No,
big thing,
they
right?
don't.
Like an emotional abuse. And that's why they say that. So let's go back to the beginning.
Hmm.
What do you know about the circumstances surrounding your birth and why who was it that took you in? Did they end up taking you to
Yeah.
the
So
hospital or what?
so here's what I know. And hi, this is one of my cats. They like to make
Oh.
appearances because they see the camera on, and I think they think they're movie stars. This is Turbo. Say hi. No heart and
Hi.
soul. I know. Okay, bye. Um, so my mother, it's interesting because there's a lot of before I was born, that part of the story that
Mm-hmm.
I don't really tell in my book too much and I don't share much about in my talks. But the interesting thing, and I have put this together from many, many years of talking to relatives and people who, I have a relationship with my biological father. But my mother what I knew back then, what I started with was that she got pregnant, obviously, as a teenager. She was made
Mm-hmm.
to feel very ashamed. This was back in the 70s when it wasn't okay like it is now. So she brought her family shame. So they sent her away.
Mm-hmm.
Said, "You can't live here. You brought us shame." She had to leave high school, everything. She went and lived at Salvation Army Booth Memorial Hospital, which is in Chicago, and they take in, or well, I should say they took in, they don't do it anymore as far as I know. But back then they would take in pregnant teenage girls that were pregnant either from rape or, you know, just because they were with their boyfriends, which is what
Mm-hmm.
the situations were. And they would basically I guess if you call that homeschooling, but put them through academics there at their location. They had shelter, they had food. I was even told that they threw little baby showers for each of these girls for the babies and kind of counseled them through the process. Now, I'm still putting some pieces back together because there's some sketchy stuff that I've discovered in the meantime, that there were girls that were not prepared. They didn't want to continue to feel this shame of bringing their child outside of the hospital, back to their families and their communities. So, I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened, but it appears what I've been told is some people were kind of pushed into saying, well, just say the baby was a product of rape. We can adopt the baby out. And so a lot of the babies
Mm-hmm.
out. My mother was very vocal with me when I was young that she had planned to leave me there and let somebody adopt me. But yes, grandma and great grandma were not going to hear of that. I was the first granddaughter, first great granddaughter, and I was their blood. And for Latina women, that's all you need. That's your blood, and that's all you need to know. So they went to the hospital. Grandma paid the bill. Great grandma took me home, and I was great grandma's baby for the first few years of my life. And it was wonderful. She in my heart will always be my mother. We were very close. She passed when I
Mm-hmm.
was 27. Um, and I miss her every day. But she, at least, at the very least, I'm so grateful that she gave me a foundation of love for me
Mm-hmm.
to understand a mother's love, true unconditional love. Because at the point where everybody thought it was a good idea for my mother to take
Mm-hmm.
me because she met a man who had the house in the suburbs and the car and all the things, the seemingly glorious life, everybody thought it would be a good idea for my mother to basically pick up her responsibility, me, and go live that wonderful life that they thought they couldn't give me in the city. And so that's when really everything, all the trouble began. But I think it's because I had that foundation of knowing what love was and knowing what was right and wrong and all, the morals and values I picked up
Mm-hmm.
when I was now in this situation, that I had a mother who was allowing the man she was with to physically abuse me, verbally, emotionally abuse me. And then she began to participate in it as well. And ultimately, when I was 16, she tried to end my life. Um, it it was very clear to me. It was blatantly clear to me that this was not love. Whereas some people that come out of an abusive childhood, you know, that's all you know. But I knew love before that for just a little amount of time. So for me, I was that little precocious little kid, 5, 6 years old, saying, that's not right. You're not supposed to talk to me that way. You're not supposed to treat me this way. You're supposed to, like, I knew how
Mm-hmm.
everybody was supposed to be. I had
Exactly.
friends, I would go to their houses and see, like, they're not getting beaten to a pulp. They're not getting beaten with the phone when they try to call 911. They're not,
Mm.
their mothers aren't turning around when it just, but it's such a, I don't even have words for what it feels like to be a child, and for nobody to come and nobody was going to come and save me. There was nobody that was going to come and save me. And so there was no way out.
Wow. And your great grandmother couldn't do anything about it, like to try to fight you, like fight back and try to get you back.
I desperately wished that she would, but we have to remember, and a lot of people don't consider this, but generational patterns of behavior. Great
Mm-hmm.
grandma went through the Depression. She's from the silent generation.
Mm-hmm.
Silent
Mm-hmm.
generation. You don't talk, you don't see it, you don't hear it, you don't speak
That's
of it.
true.
And I did go to her a couple of times, and that's what I got, the finger to the lips. Respect your mother. We don't talk
Mm,
about those things, but she did. I mean, she loved me and nurtured me through it in her own way. It was in a very Mr. Miyagi kind of way, like, you know telling me things that I didn't like really understand until I was in my 40s. I'm like, oh, that's what she was trying to tell me, to take care of myself and make me self-sustainable and resourceful and independent so that I could survive that all. But no, I think also, that was part of her agreeing. Well, I don't know if there was an agreement, but part of her releasing me back to my mother is that, let's be real, she was my great grandma. And even though my mother
mm-hmm,
was young when she had me, here was a woman that, in the time I was with her, she had multiple heart attacks. And I think
mm,
I've discovered more recently, like, maybe from her perspective, she worried that she wouldn't be able to take care of me long term,
yeah.
and what would happen, because there were multiple times where she would have a heart attack, and I thought she was just sleeping on the floor. And it wouldn't be until somebody, an uncle or a relative, her apartment was Grand Central Station, everybody came and went, and they would
Mm-hmm,
find her, and an ambulance would be called, and somebody would take me for a night. But um yeah, it was a lot. It just always,
mm,
it's interesting now that I'm 50 years old, that I look back and I'm like, with everything that happened, it just always, it makes sense to me now how I always had that sense that I didn't belong, just because
mm-hmm,
it was like I was with great grandma. But if she was laying on the floor and the ambulance took her, then I was with that aunt. Then I was with the cousin. Sometimes I was with my mom. And then even after I moved with my mom, I didn't feel at home because that was her husband's house. And he would tell me, you don't belong here. Just your mother and I belong here. And you're not part of this
mm,
family. And, even in my adult life, I counted, I've moved 17 times. And I'm like, of course I have, because I've never had that sense that I physically belonged anywhere. I always felt like I had to be ready to move and ready to up and go to the next place that was going to take me for whatever time. It's kind of sad.
yeah. Yeah, because you want stability, right?
Yeah.
Because any child wants stability.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what happened with, you say your great grandma, but what about your grandmother? She never wanted to, like, because I know if they let your mom go, they're like, you can't be here. So your grandmother never attempted to be part of your life.
I saw her once in a while, but she, in my childhood, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel she wasn't very present. She loved me very much, and I know she does. And she tells me now, I get it all now again as an adult, because we can have adult conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I didn't know, because I was a kid. She was going through her own thing. We have this
Mm-hmm.
generational pattern of trauma. She was married to a very violent and abusive man.
Oh
And her
wow.
story is, horrendous as well. And she was also abused in her childhood by a stepfather, which we bond over now. But, she, during that time that I was growing up, was in the thick of her mess. And, you know, again, back in the 70s, women didn't divorce husbands, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
She finally did, but there's a lot of backlash, and she had to go and find a job. And having moved here from Puerto Rico, it in some parts of Chicago, you're well received, but in
Yeah.
others, not so much, at least
Mm-hmm.
back then. So, she was going through her own stuff over there, and trying to figure it out. But we're good now.
Okay.
I are good now, but yeah, it's just really sad when you see all these patterns, when it's one generation after another, that just, it's monkey see monkey do. And I think that's life. We just, as children, absorb this idea that, oh, this is how a dynamic is between a husband and wife. Oh, that's just normal. It's normal for men to cheat. It's normal for men to go out to the bar after work every night. It's normal for men to apparently beat their wives and kids, and do, like, if you grow up like that, you sometimes believe that, and then it repeats in the next generation. because let's
Mm-hmm.
be real, something I don't talk about often, but when I'm married now for a second time, um, to a very quiet, very gentle, very easygoing man, which seems like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, everything will be wonderful now, right? He loves me,
Mm-hmm.
gives me this nice, soft, quiet life. Well, no, for somebody that lived for 45 years before him in complete chaos, abuse, and trauma, uh, it was nice for a short time, but the quiet got to feel a little too uncomfortable because I was so used to chaos and my body chemistry, even the stress hormones weren't being activated. The chaos wasn't there. And I didn't realize until my late 40s, like, oh my God, I've been equating chaos to love all this time because I would start stuff up with him, just instigate trouble over the first time was no joke over a bottle of ketchup. And the second time it was over a package of beef. We cook a lot. But it's like it was so unnecessary, but it was just like I had to stir something up. I had to have a tantrum about something to provoke a reaction. I wanted him mad
Mm-hmm.
because if he was mad, if I could piss him off, then he loved me. Then I was
Wow.
validated. And I'm like, gosh darn, that's really back ass words, you know? Like, but you think you'll be fine when you're out, but you're not okay until you fix the stuff in you that is receptive to that healthy dynamic. So that's a whole other thing. But it's been a journey, and thankfully, I am with a very patient and gentle man.
Thank God,
He does
yes.
speak up when he needs to. I've seen his other side. I've provoked it, but he's also helped me to feel safe in the quiet and in the gentle and in the calm so that my nervous system can kind of recalibrate to that as a normal, like a base mode of being, because it's much nicer than the first 45 years of my life.
Well, I bet. I bet it would be. Is but it's a whole like a whole new environment, right?
Yeah.
So going back to that, when a little bit back for your first marriage, when you eventually met the man who became your husband, what did the relationship look like in the beginning when you started that relationship? Was it like that since the start, or did he come in very gentle, very, or was he like that since the beginning?
The very first chapter of my first book, the first book is about that 25-year relationship. The very first chapter starts with him walking into the office that I worked at. That's when I first met him. And right off the bat, immediately, I disliked him. He repulsed me because he reminded me, just in his nonverbal expression,
Mm-hmm.
this misplaced arrogance, this sense of entitlement. Like, and I'm looking at him like, who are you even? Like, you don't even like, but he thought he was something and deserved servitude, and just reminded me of my stepfather right from the get-go. And I mean, when I say repulsed, like my body physically, like the energy was just like ick. I mean, I know
Mm.
choice words, but we'll go with ick for the
Mm-hmm.
audience.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I didn't want a darn thing to do with this man. But then, because it was a work for me, it was a work situation. And so I had to, provide service, so to speak, to him in that professional sense. And then it was kind of getting to me. It wasn't until that point that I realized that even though I had left my abusive childhood home at 18, it was somewhere between 18 and 19. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. Nobody's ever going to mistreat me. It was about when I was 19 that I realized, with this man that I eventually married, that, oh my God, I'm a people pleaser. Like, I'm really seriously, like, I cannot stand when somebody doesn't like me. Like, we're not vibing. I can't stand him, but I couldn't stand that he couldn't stand me more. So then I
Oh,
started
wow.
jumping through the hoops, trying to get his approval. Like, can I do anything else for you? Is this, everything okay? Doing like major customer service, like over and above and beyond, just trying to get him to just open up, like even just crack a smile and be like a human being to me. And it's just sad to me when I look back on the young woman that I was, just so desperate for this jackass's approval, that it ended up in a situation where, um, he did invite me over in the middle of the night, and I thought, oh my gosh, yay, he likes me, or I'll go check. Even if
Mm-hmm.
I don't like him, I'll go see what he's about. And he ended up taking sexual advantage of me that night. But what
Wow.
I admit to, and I say it in the book, I let him. So I would never call it rape. I haven't yet, but I didn't want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, while it was happening, was like, I this is just wrong. Like, this feels like a violation. But in my mind, I was also thinking, okay, but he wants me and nobody else does. And he's making me feel like I'm worth something. And even if it
Mm.
was, man that I couldn't stand, I was worth something to somebody. Because again, when you come out of a childhood where your mother tells you all the time that, she never wanted you, your stepfather's saying you should have never been born, I was supposed to be a boy and I was a girl. She couldn't name me Daniel like she wanted to, so she had to name me Dana because I had the nerve to be a girl. It's like when you have done everything wrong and somebody, even if for me it was like, okay, even if he just wants my body, I guess I'll be okay with that because it's something. I have something to offer. And what a
Mm.
terrible, terrible thing. Because when I look back on that, I'm just like, wow, if that was my daughter, I would have just grabbed her and brought her home and hugged her and loved on her with all my heart and told her that she's so worth so much more than that, so much more than what she
Mm.
endured. So yeah, that was a lot, but he didn't change from that point. I think that for him was a power move that showed him that he could get away
He
with
could.
doing whatever he wanted, and that I was going to shrink back. I was going to comply because I needed to mean something to somebody, even if I didn't really mean something.
Mm-hmm.
That was the start, and it didn't get any better.
Wow. And from that point, how long after that did you get married?
It was 5 years before we got married, but he had me moved
Mm.
in within 6, 7 weeks. I was moved in with him. Met his parents after only 1 week. Yeah, it moved very, very fast. He told me he loved me within a week. I mean, when again, coming from the childhood I came from,
Mm-hmm.
I still didn't like him very much. but he said he loved me and he was going to love me forever.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't say that to a girl that's been through the childhood that I had, without it sinking in and meaning, like in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, then I'm going to do my best to make sure that he loves me, which just meant that I was going to keep jumping through all the hoops to make sure he was
Yeah.
happy with me so that he would keep
Yes.
giving me. I always say I felt like a dog that was picked up at the shelter, eager to go and belong to somebody, and then always working for the treats, always having to beg and do something for the treats. And the other part of it that I understand more now looking back, and this all happened kind of while I was writing the book, is kind of looking back and saying, ooh, I see something there, is that having met his mother and father within a week after what happened that first night, they were the loveliest people, like Mr. and Mrs. Cleaver. Like, I fell so in love, especially with his dad, but they were the parents anybody would have wanted. And so
Wow.
there were two things that happened. One, I was like, oh, if I'm with him, they can kind of be my parents too.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, if those were his parents, he can't possibly be the man that I think he is, this young man that he's showing me he is, he's got to
Mm-hmm.
be better because they're good people.
Yeah.
And so there was this hope in my heart, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. It wasn't.
Wow. Did you ever open up to his parents and tell them about the situation?
Not fully, but yes. That's a very delicate thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had to test the waters. I was very close. His dad loved me as much as I loved him. I will say that. His father would step in and say what he needed to say to his son. I always felt like if I could just tell his dad, all I needed to say was, your son upset me, and have a few tears come out of my eyes, and his dad would, oh, he would make
Mm.
sure to take care of it. But his father, unfortunately, passed away.
Oh.
Yeah, it only 5 years into our marriage. It was awful. But his mother and I got along great. I mean, we talked on the phone. I could call her with anything, and there were a few conversations that we had, and she would just say, "Oh, well, all the men in the family have anger issues." That's what she called
Mm.
anger issues.
That's a red flag right there.
Should have been a red flag. Should have
Uh-huh.
been a red flag, but she wasn't telling me something that I didn't know, because honestly, it didn't matter what all the other men in the family were doing. I was worried about the one that I was living with in my house. And then when
Exactly.
I got pregnant, and we're having a baby, this is the one I need to worry about. I can't worry about cousin so and so and uncle so and so. Like, I've got
Mm-hmm.
one right here that's hurting me, and eventually was hurting my son. So that was really hard. And there were a couple things that, I'll keep to myself, just out
Mm-hmm.
of respect to her, that she said that made me, I knew she knew that there was more going
Mm-hmm.
on, but that was her son. And she was one of those mothers that's her
Mm-hmm.
son. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they no matter what, that's their son, and they will protect them and they will do everything for them. I know exactly what
No,
you're
and
talking
I get
about.
that. And you know what? And I have a son. My son is 23. But the difference is that after what I went through, and believe me, because of his father, I watched the dynamic with him and his girlfriend, who I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely adore like a daughter. But I have made it clear, and I have said it to my son, I've said it in front of him: if I ever see any hint of anything or hear of anything, so help me God, so help you, God, that I will come after you, because
Mm.
that will not be okay with me. That will not happen while I'm here on this earth.
We'll be right back with more of today's conversation. But first, if you're new here, you may not know that one of the greatest journeys my family has ever walked was my daughter's Zoe's battle with childhood cancer. That journey inspired me to write Zoe the Brave, a faith filled children's book that helps families talk about courage, hope, and trusting God through difficult seasons. I also wrote A Big Brother's Promise, a heartfelt story told through the eyes of a sibling, reminding brothers and sisters that their love and support matter too. Both books are available in English and Spanish and can be found on Amazon. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
We're not,
Mm-hmm.
I broke the cycle. We're not doing this again.
That's the key, breaking the cycle. It's you have to stop it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I tell people that I'm like, no, I'm breaking the cycle right here. This
Yeah.
is it right here. I'm the one that's gonna break it so that the generation in
Yes.
front of me will not have this,
Yeah.
cycle, because that's a generational cycle that needs to break, and somebody has to bring it to break it, you
Yeah.
know.
And it's not pretty. It's not
No.
fun being the cycle breaker. I never
No.
asked for it, but you open
Yeah.
your mouth and you speak the truth. Suddenly you're the well, I was going to say the A word, but you are
Mm-hmm. Yep.
disabled, and they exile you, they reject you, they
Mm-hmm.
shame you. I have very few family members that still speak to me. I don't get, it's hard for me on holidays. I get to watch everybody on, social media posting pictures. I even see pictures of, because you get feed of people you might
Yeah.
know. I'm like, yeah, I know them. That I'm actually blood related, but good for them that there's their family picture with the Christmas tree, or, at the Easter egg hunts with all the kids. But I'm not there. And it really
Mm-hmm.
sucks. It hurts. But I
Mm-hmm.
also know that my truth is more important than the truth that they're not willing to address and acknowledge for
Yeah.
whatever they're afraid of, whatever it is that's inhibiting them. I was the one that was brave enough to step up and say, this is what it is, and I'm not okay with it. And if that
Mm-hmm.
means me being X'd out, so be it. So be it. But it doesn't mean it doesn't still hurt.
Yeah. Of course. Because you're all human beings, you know? And everybody deserves love and
Yeah.
respect and all that, you know? That's one thing my husband could tell you is like, when I got married with him, no, before I got married with him, I told him, I'm like, uh, one laying of hands on me,
Yeah.
you will be gone. Like that was the first thing, like before anything, because I didn't see that in my household. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like I never saw my dad ever hit my mom, like ever. But
Amazing.
I remember one time that my mom told me that before my parents like um met God and got into church and everything, my dad was a heavy drinker. He was a heavy drinker, and my mom said that she came um one day, they had just gotten married, and my dad just came in drunk and really bad, and she was like, this is the one and only.
Yeah.
And he just stopped completely because he knew she was gonna leave. And right now my parents are 50, 53, 54 years married.
Wow.
um but now my dad is taking care of my mom because my mom has Alzheimer's. So he's like her caregiver with my sister and everything. But I see the love he has for her, and I'm like, that's the type of marriage I want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it kind of, I could see though also how what we see sometimes we also attract, right? Unfortunately, but it's the truth. I mean,
It is.
let's be honest, right? We attract whatever we see in our home. Like, let's so that's the only thing that is like, man, why do we do that? I
I
don't
can tell
know.
you why we do that. I I
Go
can
ahead.
actually tell you. It's all neuroscience. It's called neuroplasticity. And to make it more in layman's terms, whatever is familiar to us, that's what our brain allows us to accept into our life. If
There you
something
go.
is not familiar, that's when we feel anxiety, like, oh, that's not normal for me, so that makes me anxious. That's why I get with this gentle, sweet man who has this beautiful, calm life. And my nervous system said, get us the hell out of here. Either stir shit up or get us out of here. Like, we can't do this. We don't know what this is. But if you
Yeah.
think about it, I always tell people it's like if you go, let's say you go like on a trail, hiking or something, and you
Mm-hmm.
always go down that, you have a route you normally go. And then one day you're like, ooh, should I go down that other path? But I've never been down there. And how many of us would stand there and debate, like, well, I don't know, should I?
Yeah.
Shouldn't I? That's what's going on there. That is literally what our brain does every single day. And just for fun facts for anybody, that I'm a neuroscience junkie, we receive on average 11 million data points into our brain every day. Everything we experience, everything we hear, see, touch, everything, every person we come in contact with, 11 million things enter our brain. And
Mm.
our brain only keeps 24 of those
Wow.
11 million data points. And the ones that they keep, I always tell people it's like a bouncer at a club. Who do you let in? The regulars. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy that's just like my abusive stepfather. Hey, come on in, join the party, because I know what I'm gonna get with you. I know what to expect with you. You, the nice
Mm,
guy, yeah, I don't know what to do with you. You're unfamiliar. That feels like a threat. So you can stay in line. Maybe later we'll see what happens. But abusive men, come on in. That's why we do that. And it's
mm,
really screwed up because at the end of the day, what that basically tells me is that we do it to ourselves. But that's why we also have the power, if anybody's interested, and I have stuff on my website, but we have the power to kind of rewire, is what the term that they
the
use,
rewiring, yeah.
to learn how to let in the unfamiliar things that we do and want in our life, like the nice man that we can be married to for 50 some years, and that's going to take care of us when we're older and sick and we need somebody with that gentle touch. We just need to train ourselves to do that, but it is trying, and it is difficult, but it is possible.
Yeah. And what was the moment when something inside of you finally said that's enough? Like, did you try to leave like a lot, or did you just like the one time and you were done?
Well, the average, specifically women, because it happens to women more, the
Mm-hmm.
average woman tries to leave 8 times before she finally does. I spoke to 7 attorneys in the course of my 25 years with him, and it was the seventh attorney that I finally did go ahead and file and get the divorce. But the turning point, it was ironic for me, and I'm still baffled by it, but it just speaks to exactly what I was just talking about with the brain,
Mm-hmm.
is that there were so many things. I mean, look at just even the first night with him. He took advantage of me sexually. That should,
Mm-hmm.
you want to talk about a red flag. Not even a month later, he threw something at me across the room because he was angry that I spent $15 on a CD that he had also purchased that day.
Wow.
Well, I didn't know. And to get so angry that we're throwing things at me, but that led to a crowbar being swung at my head. That led to knives and then guns and physical, like coming at me like a football player trying to tackle me down when I'm running away.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
Scraping his vehicle against mine, punching my vehicle, following me, stalking me. You know, there were a multitude of things that should have said, get the hell out.
Enough. Yeah, yeah,
But
of
what was
course.
it that made me finally do it? It was my health. Because after all that time, it was around the end of 2018, I became so ill. And I mean, immediately. It was a very fast and drastic thing that happened. I went from being very, very healthy to very, very sick. Like, I was running 5 miles a day, coaching cross country. I'm a weirdo that eats like apples and hard boiled eggs for lunch. And I love avocados, but that's the Puerto Rican in me. Of course, I love avocados. Plantains. We can get into food. I love food. But,
Mm-hmm.
I was healthy. I was very healthy. And within 2 weeks' time, after another incident, a sexual incident with him where I was pinned down and forced, my body just said, we're done. If you're not done with this marriage, we're done. And my body just basically gave out. I had multiple organ systems actually shut down, including my lungs, and I had to have a breathing machine just to get oxygen into my lungs to get my heart beating. And I could barely walk, I could barely move. And I dropped almost 20 pounds. And you've met me. I'm not big. I'm pretty
Mm-hmm.
small. So for me to lose 20 pounds, I was skeletal, and it was scary. And my doctor sat me down at the end of 2019 and said, I can't do anything for you. There is no drug, there's no surgery. Something is causing you so much stress in your life that if you don't get it out of your life, you are going to die. And I was 44 years old. I was like, but I have a son
Wow.
in high school. I want to see him graduate. I want to watch him go to school after that and get married and have kids. Like, I'm not ready to go yet. Gosh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting chills. But that was the turning point, laying in bed I didn't even sleep in a bed. I slept on the couch in the basement because I didn't want to be anywhere near the thing that was so toxic, laying in the bed upstairs, a man who was called my husband, but wasn't much of one, at least not to me. And that was the point where I just said, okay, what do I even want? Because nobody's ever asked me what I wanted. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know I could want, and immediately I had the answers. I was like, well, I went to college and got a degree in journalism. I've always wanted to write. I would love to write something, anything.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be married too to somebody who maybe likes me a little bit and that we can sleep in the same bed and, enjoy and share a life together. And I wanted to travel.
Hmm.
This guy didn't want to go anywhere. I couldn't even go 5 minutes away to the Dollar General to buy cat food without being accused of sleeping with somebody because I took too long. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I was just like, okay, that's kind of when my mind was like, well, you're never going to have that life with that man. So, do you want to stay here and suffer physically, mentally, and maybe not even exist at all? Or are we going to go live our life?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make a decision that night, but again, here's the neuroscience. My brain saw that I wanted to write, and it saw that I wanted to be married to somebody who reciprocated love and respect and all the things. And it saw that I wanted to travel, and my brain couldn't unsee that. So I was divorced in less than a year. He was out in less than that, but we were divorced less than a year later. And the beautiful part of this story is that less than 2 years after that, so a year after the divorce, I was married to this wonderful, sweet, gentle man who reciprocates love. I published book one of three a year after that, and it was a bestseller and it's won multiple awards, which is bittersweet because it's only because so many people could resonate to this type of relationship or this story. And
Mm-hmm.
I am with a man now that in our first year together, we traveled to 9 places worldwide. We take trips all the time. And he has a rule that whenever we're on our way back on the airplane back home from a trip, I have to decide where we're going next because we always have to have something to look forward to. And it's just so amazing to me that all I did was lay on that basement couch that night, suffering, wondering what a life I would want looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, it just all it just all happened. All of it.
Wow.
But I'm not special is the thing. We all have this in us. We
Exactly.
all have the right to choose what our life looks like. And it makes me sad that so often we see people that choose to remain in circumstances that they're not happy in because they feel obligated or they should or they can't or whatever words they use. But you can. You just have to choose it.
Exactly.
Choose what you want. And it means choosing you. And it means some people aren't going to be happy with you choosing you because it doesn't prioritize them and their needs and them taking advantage of you and for whatever it's worth. So it's a tricky thing to make a decision like that, but I feel like sometimes we just have to take the leap because my thing is what's the worst thing that happens? You try something different, you don't like it, okay, then you go back to that person or that situation and say, I made a bad choice. Can I try again? Can we do this again? Can I come back to this job? Can I move back to
Mm-hmm.
this place? You can always go back.
Exactly. But in this situation, no. I'm like, in this situation, no way.
No. I actually
Uh,
saw a reel on social media the other day that it was a divorced parents being introduced into their son's wedding reception to the Taylor Swift song "We Are Never Getting Back Together," and I just thought, yes, yeah. I wouldn't even want to walk in next to him, but no, we are never, ever, ever, ever getting back together. Lord help us all.
and when you tried to leave, did he try to stop you?
There
Or
was,
did were
yeah,
you able to, because some women are scared to leave because they're scared of what he'll do or she'll do or
yeah,
whatever. Um so it's a scary moment because
it
you're
is.
thinking, and also like between that and also were you a lot of a lot of relationships, the situation is also codependence, like depending on money and all that stuff. They're scared of leaving because they're like, well, I haven't worked for so many years, or what am I gonna do? I can't afford life because he was paying most of the
Mhm.
bills, things like that.
Right.
Like what? How was it for you in this situation?
Well, I was in a little bit different of a situation, so I'll explain that briefly, but then I want to come back to answer to you because that is what I typically get from women saying I can't leave because of everything you just said, and I'm going to
Yes.
answer that on a few different levels. I actually it was a typical narcissistic manipulation. I actually came home one day from work.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that things were missing, and I was looking around like, okay, am I going nuts? But then when I went upstairs to go to my home office, I saw the bed had been stripped and all the pictures that we had of us and our family were in a pile. All his clothes were gone from his closet. He had moved out in the middle of the day while I was at work and while our son was at school, but then he came back in the house a little bit later. I mean, I was like, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
thought I could get rid of him because they're like cockroaches sometimes. Like, you just cannot get rid of them. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, thank you, Jesus. Called the attorney. I said, let's go. Let's do this. Like, slam on that accelerator, make this happen fast. But he came back later and kind of made like a kind of having a tantrum, like a toddler stomping in and to get one more shirt, or it was something out of the closet, like he forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Even my son kind of noticed all this and he goes, oh, just go get him, he just wants to get your attention, so he wants you to go beg for him to come back, so just go get him and get him back. And I looked at my son and he said, Mom. And I was like, son, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I can't be with a man who thinks it's okay
Mm-hmm.
screw with his wife. That's not what grown people do. When you love somebody, you don't take all of your things and make a show of moving out to get attention or for whatever that is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was exhausted. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And my son was very angry with me, but I said, no, I think this, I'm glad your dad had this inclination to do this, because I think this needs to happen and it needs to happen now. And that was the beginning. But the problem is, especially when there are abusive situations, the violence usually amps up at the end because their ego is hurt, they're
Mm-hmm.
offended. They'll go around and tell everybody all kinds of awful things that aren't true about you so that they look like the victim.
Yeah.
And they also retaliate, which he absolutely did. We had 2 incidents of domestic violence at the house, and I had to go to court. I had to get the cops involved. I had to fight for a restraining order after guns and knives were used. And after there were even witnesses, and I had in writing from him that he was planning to end my life. And
Wow.
I still had trouble. I had to go 3 times to court to get a restraining order because they didn't see that I was in any apparent danger. And yeah, and the restraining order I got was that he had to stay 10 feet away from me at all times. And I stood in front of the judge and I said, look at me. I'm 100 pounds. He could throw a 2x4 at me from 10 feet away.
Yes, exactly.
He could throw a knife. He could throw a rock at me and hurt me.
That's nothing. 10 feet away is
And
nothing.
he literally admitted, and I even had people in court that he admitted to them, and I had in writing that what he was planning to do. And so it was a very hard experience to go through, but this brings me to what my answer to myself was, what helped me sustain all that is my answer to all the people that say, but I don't have the money. How am I going to support the kids? Where am I going to live? How? You know why? The guy upstairs. The guy upstairs. I knew I was divinely protected.
Mm-hmm.
God had his hand over me. He was not going to he hadn't let anyone else get a hold of me. He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
going to this man get a hold of me either. I was here to do work, and I hadn't even begun to do that work yet. That is my story, but I think it's all of our stories because I have yet to see a woman who leaves an abusive situation, whether she has 0 kids or 4 kids and 2 dogs and a cat and a goldfish and a turtle, that doesn't have a place to go, where she is provided shelter, where they are provided food, where they are taken care of in every way possible. There are
Mm-hmm.
good, decent people in this world. There are organizations out there willing to
Yes.
help. There are even organizations that foster your animals for you until you regain, some stability in a home. And that is so necessary. I had multiple animals, that he was, I didn't even put that in my books because that was a whole other thing. But he wasn't just abusive to me. It was the animals. It was our son.
Mm.
Everybody gets it when they're angry. So, um, my answer is you're going to be okay. You're not going to be homeless on the street with your children. Like, nobody's going to let that happen to you. And I say that from the bottom of my heart, that I know this because I have seen it. I've seen it in the UK. I've seen it in Australia. I've seen it in various parts of our country. I've been involved with people and organizations where they make these things happen. They provide you with funds to get you by until you can regain some ground on your own, but you're going to be okay. You're going to be better off than staying with that person in that situation. And so will
Mm-hmm.
kids be. They'll be much better off.
Yes. Wow. Um, and now I wanted to go. I know it's getting long here, but I wanted to see, as an adult, have you been able to have any type of relationship with your mother?
I tried very hard. Um, we went no contact 3 times. The first time was all my doing. I just, you can only tolerate so much before you're just like, I just can't. And that was actually right after my son was born.
Mm-hmm.
Because she had no interest in my son. She had no interest in any, just in anything with me still. It was just, it's hard enough to be a new mother. And the postpartum depression, and just to have the strain of that relationship with her, I just didn't have the emotional capacity. So I just needed some time. But the second time was her, and then the third time I actually, it was it was a long story, but she decided that she could not be my mother and her husband's wife at the same time. And I
Mm.
said, so you're just choosing to just, I'm just not going to be your daughter anymore? I mean, like, I'm 40 some years old.
Mm.
And she said, no. She says, you'll be fine. She says, you're strong. You have, a husband, you have, your son. You'll be fine. And I mean, I was kind of sad because I thought, what does that mean? Does she mean that she doesn't have strength, or she doesn't have people? I mean, she has the whole family, she has support, but
Yeah.
she didn't see it that way. She felt she had her husband and that's what she chose. And I fought with her. I fought hard and I said, "Look, I know we don't get along. I know we are very different." And you have been very clear about where I stand in your life, but you're my mother, and even if we have a strained relationship, I would like to have a relationship. And I said to her, "Let's go. What if we have to go take a walk, if we got to go to lunch, get our nails done, have a very long or 10 cups of coffee and hash it out. Just say whatever you need to say to me. I can take it. Just tell me what, and I will tell you everything I have to say to you. And let's just see if we can build something from that." And she
Mm-hmm.
said, no. She said, no. She said she had nothing to say to me and that she was done. And that was it. And that really sucks. But, you know, the thing that I've learned in all of this, I mean, for me, it's my mother. It's been a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't force somebody to be somebody they don't want to be.
Exactly.
My
Yes.
mother and her husband had a son of their own, And if he was standing right here, he would tell you that he had the best parents and he still has the best parents that
Mm.
anybody could ever ask for. And he did. We had two completely different sets of parents in the
Wow.
same people. But it's because they wanted him. They wanted to be his parents. They didn't want to be mine. And in a weird way, I have to respect that because I go around telling people to live their authentic life, honor themselves, honor what you want and what you need. And so I would be a hypocrite to say that because I actually have some respect for my mother. Like she
Mm.
never wanted to be my mother, and Lord, she is not being my mother. But how can I hate on that? She is honoring herself in that way. I may not like it, and maybe that's not how it's supposed to be, but it is what it is. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but when I look at it that way, though, it's not personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
I understand now how this works. She was the vessel that brought me here. God makes no mistakes, right? He
Mm-hmm.
brought me here for a
Amen.
reason. There is a reason I'm here, and I know why I'm here. I know it's to do what I'm doing. And sometimes you have
Yeah.
to stand alone to do this kind of thing and talk about these kind of things. But she was the vessel that brought me here. So I have respect for her and love for her. And I wish that she did have some of my strength and that she did have some self worth and all the things. But she has
Yeah.
chosen her journey, and that's her journey to have. And I'm living my life, and I know I have to believe somewhere deep down in that woman's heart, I know she hears about me. I know she sees the things. I hear
Mm-hmm.
from family, oh, there was a, a magazine and she had the, magazine open on the coffee table and you were in it, or the newspaper. I know she sees. She may not like it, what I talk about, but I know she has to be proud that she birthed me, she brought me here, and I
Yeah.
am making her proud. So that's what we're doing. But I've got so many people in my life. I have so much love in my life. I wish I had one from, love from a mother, but I had great grandma and I still talk to
There you
her.
go.
I know she hears me. She's always with me in my heart, but we're all literally here for our own reason. And if we can separate the biology from that and just understand that unfortunately we're not always all going to get along with the people we want to, but it doesn't mean anything about who we are. We're still okay. We're still worthy of love and of a good life. And we can
Yes.
still have that if we choose it.
Oh, so good. Yep, that's so true. And do you ever look at your life now and think, I can't believe this is my life? After everything you've been through, like where you're at now?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of morbid, but honestly, even within the last 5 years, there was some time of when I started trying to heal and grieving and feeling bad about a lot of things that happened in life, and that I just didn't want to be here. I have thought about ending my life, and I just think now, like, but look at this. It's because I couldn't see the end vision. I was making
Mm-hmm.
all those things that happen mean that I wasn't supposed to live a good life. And how do you want to go on if you think you're not supposed to live a good life? So, but yeah, I do. I will say I am grateful every single day. I'm one of these weirdos that wakes up at 4 a.m. and has my coffee. Of course, it's like the strongest coffee ever because that's what we do.
What,
And
Bustelo?
oh yeah, I got the good stuff. Yeah, and the percolator, the whole thing. We can't do a regular coffee maker either. It's got to be percolated. But yeah, I sit there with and I journal, and I consciously every single morning, because I am grateful. I look at the beauty. I'm grateful that I have this husband who loves me and has the patience to be on this healing journey with me, and be on this adventure with me, traveling the country, talking about these awful things, but connecting people, and
Mm-hmm.
bonding. people and meeting different people all over the world, even, and just the beautiful home I have, and that, oh my gosh, I am a published author. And it's not just books, I'm in magazines and all the things. And it's like, who is this girl? Like, I've done my little girl proud, my little inner child and that angry teenager. They're just like, yes, 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 because I am their justice, but we don't need to fight anymore. We're doing it peacefully. It's just all
Mm-hmm.
about bringing light to the truth, because that's all this is about. It's not about vengeance. It's not about talking badly about people. I get accused
No.
of that. Like, it's not about that. It's just about speaking the truth, because this isn't just me. Right now, they're saying 1 in 3 women are in an abusive relationship.
Mm.
1 in 3 women are abused by a current or a former intimate partner, and 1 woman dies every 10 minutes all around the world, every 10 minutes as a result. Just in the time we've been having this conversation, 6 women have died at the hands of an abusive partner. That's not okay with me.
No.
And that's what this is about. Not to mention the children that witness it, that are also abused, that
Yeah.
have trauma as a result of it. It's got to stop. It's got to
Mm-hmm.
stop.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And who better than a person that has gone through it to help at least a little bit, right? Because really, we can't do everything, but we could give this a little bit of what we have and know of our own experience to help others. Because that's what it's all about, right? It's all about that, of helping others. Um, what would you say to the woman listening right now who knows she's in an abusive relationship but is terrified to leave? What would you tell her at this moment?
I would say I understand. It's very scary because you don't know what's going to happen. But I would also say that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I would say to just reach out to the one person that you can trust most, whoever that is. Let them know what's on your heart and let them help you. Let them help you.
Mm.
I am very careful to say, though, I don't urge people to just up and leave, because that's not always the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there is somebody outside of your home that you trust that can at least help you get some things together and help you prepare, and maybe even, if assistance is needed, provide that assistance. Just reach out. But the biggest thing is to know you're not alone. I thought I was alone. I didn't know that anybody would believe me. I still have people that don't believe me, and that's fine. I don't care. But I have to serve as hope
Yes.
that, for those women that are there, to say, you know what, if she could do it, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it. You will be okay.
Yes. And this is a perfect ending to this show for today. And before we go, though, I want to, if you can let our viewers know where they can find you, all that information on social media, or it's their website. And also, all this is going to be in the show notes. I'll get all the information so that all the links and everything will be in the show notes as well. But how can they find you? And also bring you onto other podcasts as well, or
Yeah,
anywhere speaking engagement, things like that. How would they be able to connect with you?
yeah, go straight to my website. Everything is there. DanaSDiaz.com. Very simple. Um, the books are on there. You can get them on Amazon too. To connect with me through email for speaking engagements, podcasts, you can connect with me there. Social media links are on there. I'm on everything except for Snapchat, but Instagram and TikTok are my hangouts. I love those two. They're my favorite. YouTube, I'm on that. I do a long form every week there. And
Okay.
I have different content spread on all the different platforms, Substack as well, LinkedIn.
Okay.
It just, if you type in danasdiaz.com, you'll get everything, or just type in Dana S. Diaz, and my husband always gets surprised. He's like, "You're everywhere." Yeah, I'm not. I'm right here at home, but yes, you can find me. It's not that.
Okay, that is so great. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you, thank you, thank you for accepting this invite and being able to be raw, real with others and show that vulnerability to our audience because I know that at least one person I know will come back and say, thank you. Thank you for that. And that's what this show is all about. So thank you once again for everything. And thank you for everyone that has is listening, that is viewing, because now this is on video. But remember, your story matters. Your voice has purpose, and sometimes one dose of reality can change a life. So I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of A Dose of Reality Show. If today's conversation encouraged you, would you do me a favor? Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new conversation. Until next time, keep believing, keep growing, keep sharing your story because your story matters. Your voice has purpose. And sometimes one dose of reality can change a life. So I'll see you next time. Bye.